I still remember that night, like it was yesterday, the night my quiet world shattered in an instant. I was sitting in my living room, just finishing a cup of tea, when suddenly everything exploded. Before I even knew what was happening, my front door was blasted open. The sound was deafening, like thunder crashing right inside my home. Suddenly there were red laser dots pressed against my chest. Voices shouted orders, cold and urgent, filling every corner of the room. "Get on the ground, hands where we can see them." Their guns were aimed at me, and I felt a wave of fear wash over my entire body. How had my peaceful life come to this? Who had called them, and why were they here? But in the chaos, something inside me stayed calm. Instead of panicking, I reached slowly into my pocket and pulled out something I'd been holding onto for weeks. I held it up carefully, a small envelope, yellowed and fragile. I told them, "You need to see this. Please, just read it." Their eyes locked onto the paper, and in that moment, everything stopped. The shouting, the guns, even the flashing lights. They stepped back, stunned, as if what I was holding was more powerful than any weapon they could have brought. That night, nothing was the same again. My name is Maya. For years I lived a quiet life in this small, modest house. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a safe place after everything I had been through. I used to be a trauma nurse. I helped save lives in emergency rooms and battlefields. But life had its own way of teaching me lessons I never expected. My husband was a soldier, sent to Afghanistan. We dreamed of a future together, but that future was stolen from me when he didn't come home. The news came like a punch to the chest. He was killed in action. I was left with nothing but memories and a heart full of unanswered questions. Sometimes that silence in the house felt like it was swallowing me whole. To fill the emptiness, I started volunteering at a local shelter, helping people who were lost or hurting. It gave me purpose, a way to keep moving forward without falling apart. But lately something changed. I began to feel eyes on me when no one was around. Strange sounds at night, footsteps on my porch, shadows flickering outside my window. My dog would growl at nothing, pacing nervously. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks, that after all I'd been through, maybe I was just imagining things. Still, the feeling wouldn't go away. It was like someone was watching, waiting for me to slip up. The quiet life I had built was starting to crack at the edges. And deep down, I knew something was coming, something I couldn't prepare for. That night when SWAT burst through my door, I realized how right I had been. It all started weeks before that terrifying night. One evening, just as the sun was setting and casting long shadows across my porch, there was a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, a man stood there wearing a dark suit, his expression serious and unreadable. He didn't introduce himself. Instead, he simply held out a small, plain package wrapped in brown paper. "Protect this," he said quietly, his voice low but urgent. "It's bigger than you know." Before I could ask any questions, he turned and walked away. I watched him disappear down the street, a knot tightening in my stomach. I closed the door slowly, staring at the package in my hands. What could be inside? Why had he come to me? For days I kept the package untouched, afraid of what opening it might mean. But curiosity got the better of me. One night, after making sure no one was watching, I carefully unwrapped it. Inside I found a USB drive and an old photograph. The photograph caught my breath. It was a picture of my husband, but not just him. He was standing with a group of men I didn't recognize. They wore military uniforms, but something about the photo felt off. The faces were serious, almost grim. The background was blurred, like the photo had been taken somewhere secret. I stared at it for a long time, memories flooding back of my husband's last letters, the strange things he hinted at but never said out loud. And now this. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop, heart pounding. The files were encrypted, filled with strange codes and documents, names I'd never heard, places I couldn't place, and mentions of something called Operation Silent Echo. I felt a chill run down my spine. What had my husband been involved in? Why had someone sent this to me? And what was I supposed to do with it? I decided to hide the package in a safe place and start looking for answers quietly. I couldn't tell anyone, not yet. Whoever had sent that man to me was clearly watching, and I was terrified of what might happen if I slipped up. So I began to dig. Every little clue I could find, every whisper of information I kept to myself. I felt like I was stepping into a shadow world, one filled with danger and secrets far bigger than I ever imagined. After I started digging into the files, things around me began to change. It was like I had stepped into a trap I couldn't see. At first it was small things. I noticed unmarked cars parked near my house, cars without logos, with tinted windows so dark I couldn't see inside. They never stayed long, but their presence was constant, like silent shadows watching my every move. I started feeling eyes on me whenever I stepped outside. Then my mail began to get tampered with. Letters I was waiting for didn't arrive, or came back with the envelopes torn or empty. It was subtle, but I knew someone was trying to stop me from receiving something important, or sending something out. My phone started acting strange too. At night, when everything was quiet, it would buzz with no notifications. Sometimes I'd pick it up and see nothing there. Other times the battery drained faster than usual, even though I wasn't using it. I felt like I was being tracked, or worse, listened to. That's when I decided to reach out to someone I trusted from my past, a friend named Jacob. We used to work together when I was a trauma nurse, and over the years he had switched careers into cybersecurity. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to make him understand the danger I was in. I sent him the USB drive, hoping he could unlock its secrets safely. A few days later, Jacob called me. His voice was low, tense. "Maya, this is serious," he said. "The files you sent aren't just military documents. They talk about a covert operation, something called Operation Silent Echo. From what I'm seeing, it involves illegal experiments on soldiers and civilians. High-ranking officials are named, and it looks like a massive cover-up." I felt my stomach twist into knots. My husband's name appeared in the files, connected to people I'd never met but who clearly held power. "Jacob, what should I do? This is dangerous. You need to be careful," he warned. "If the wrong people find out you have this, they'll come after you. Hide the drive, and don't trust anyone." I promised I would. That night I double-checked the locks on my doors and windows, but deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Jacob's warning weighed heavily on me. He wasn't just telling me to be careful. He sounded scared. He said what I was holding wasn't just dangerous for me, but for anyone who got too close to the truth. He promised to help me upload the files to a secure server somewhere no one could trace. That night Jacob came over quietly. We set up his laptop on my kitchen table, and he began the complicated process of decrypting and transferring the data. I watched him work with steady hands, hoping we could finally get these secrets out into the open. But the next morning, Jacob was gone. His apartment was empty, no sign of struggle, nothing to explain where he'd disappeared. I tried calling him again and again, no answer. His phone went straight to voicemail. I started to panic. The police didn't take my concerns seriously. I wasn't exactly their top priority. So I tried going higher, contacting authorities anonymously to warn them about what I had found. But every time, something felt wrong. Calls would drop, emails vanished, and messages went unanswered. It was like someone was blocking me at every turn. I was alone in this, and the fear settled deeper in my chest. Then, just when I thought I might have one safe person nearby, betrayal hit hard. One evening, as I was locking the door behind me, my neighbor Mark stopped me. We had shared small talks before, friendly, neighborly, nothing more. But that night his smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's for your own good. People are watching, and it's not safe." I froze. Mark? The one person I'd trusted around here? My heart pounded with shock and confusion. "Why?" I asked, voice trembling. He hesitated, then lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry, Maya. I can't explain, but if you don't give it to me, things will get worse for you and everyone you care about." I looked into his eyes and saw something I didn't expect, fear. But whose fear? His, or someone else's? I realized then that I had been surrounded by shadows all along. Even the people closest to me might be working against me. The danger wasn't just outside my door, it was right next to me. That night, I locked myself inside and clutched the USB drive tighter than ever. I didn't know who to trust anymore, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't give up. That same night, just as I was trying to calm my racing heart, a loud, unsettling noise tore through the silence outside my house. The unmistakable whir of helicopter blades filled the sky, drowning out every other sound. My stomach dropped. Then came the pounding, thundering against my front door, sharp and relentless. "Open up, SWAT, hands where we can see them," voices screamed through the chaos. I froze, caught between shock and fear. I had no idea how they had found me, but I knew one thing: this was it. My worst nightmare had arrived. The door exploded inward, splinters flying everywhere. Dozens of men flooded the room, dressed in black tactical gear, guns trained on me. I felt the cold pressure of red laser sights on my chest again. My mind raced, but I stayed still. Panic tried to take over, but something inside me held firm. "We know you have classified information," the team leader barked, voice sharp and commanding. "Hand it over now and no one gets hurt." I swallowed the lump in my throat and slowly moved toward a nearby drawer. My hands trembled, but I didn't resist. I opened it and pulled out a thick envelope, sealed, marked with my husband's name and his military credentials. "I'm giving you this," I said, voice steady but soft. "It's from my husband." The leader took the envelope cautiously, breaking the seal and unfolding the papers inside. The room seemed to hold its breath as he read. The rest of the team lowered their weapons slightly, confusion and disbelief spreading across their faces. My husband had been part of the very operation they were trying to hide. The letter was his confession, the truth he had risked everything to leave behind for me to find. It detailed illegal orders, the harm done to innocent people, and a conspiracy reaching far beyond what I could have imagined. For a long moment no one said a word. The team leader looked up at me, his eyes softer now, but full of conflict. "We weren't told this," he said quietly. "You're not the enemy here." The tension in the room shifted. What began as an aggressive raid turned into a stunned silence. It was clear that what I held was more powerful than any warrant, any accusation. I watched as the officers slowly lowered their weapons and stepped back, the threat dissolving in the weight of my husband's truth. That night I realized my husband's courage lived on, not just in me, but in the pages of that letter. It was a responsibility I never asked for, but one I couldn't turn away from. The envelope held far more than I could have imagined. It wasn't just a letter, it was my husband's dying confession, a carefully written account of everything he had witnessed and endured. His handwriting, shaky but determined, filled every page with painful honesty. He wrote about illegal orders given from the highest ranks, orders that forced soldiers like him to cross lines they never should have. He told of innocent civilians caught in the middle, people who suffered because of decisions made in dark, hidden rooms far away from the battlefield. There were names, powerful men and women whose faces I would never see but whose influence reached deep into the heart of the military and government. Names that explained why so many questions about my husband's death were left unanswered. As the team leader read, I saw the color drain from the faces of the SWAT officers around us. They had come here thinking I was a criminal, someone hiding stolen secrets. Instead, they found the truth laid bare, and it shook them to their core. One officer whispered, almost to himself, "We weren't told this." The leader's phone rang. He stepped aside to answer, his voice low and urgent. I couldn't hear the words, but I could feel the tension thickening the air. After the call, he turned back to the team. "Stand down," he ordered firmly. "This changes everything." In that moment, the line between friend and foe blurred. They lowered their weapons completely, and gave me a look I could only describe as regret mixed with respect. The truth my husband had left me wasn't just a burden, it was a weapon powerful enough to change the course of many lives. And it was clear now that those who sent SWAT after me had tried to bury it forever. But the truth, no matter how deeply hidden, had a way of finding light. After what felt like hours, the SWAT team finally backed away. They didn't arrest me, instead they escorted me out of my own home, their faces serious but without the coldness I'd expected. I was free, but the weight of everything pressed down on me harder than ever. A week later, the news quietly reported a military whistleblower leak. There were no names, no details, just a brief mention of classified documents exposing illegal operations and cover-ups. I watched the story unfold, knowing it was connected to my husband's confession, to the secret I carried. But the silence that followed was loud. Too loud. Then, days after the news broke, my house was ransacked. Someone had been inside, searching for something, or maybe just sending a message. Drawers were emptied, papers scattered, my few precious belongings tossed aside like they meant nothing. I wasn't there when it happened. I had already vanished. I went into hiding, moving from place to place, always careful, always watching. The world I once knew, the one where I could walk freely and trust a neighbor, was gone. Now I lived in shadows, protected only by the truth I refused to let die. From this undisclosed location, I speak to you now, not to ask for sympathy, but to remind you that truth comes with a price. Sometimes that price is your safety, your peace, even your freedom. But it's a price I'm willing to pay, because some secrets are too important to bury. Because the real enemy isn't just the ones who break down doors, it's the lies we choose to live with. I want you to understand something. I'm not a hero. I'm just a woman who refused to stay silent when the truth needed to be heard. The people who were supposed to protect me became the very threat I feared the most. It's a bitter reality, one I never imagined I'd face. The weight of the truth is heavier than any weapon I've ever held. It crushes your soul, but it also gives you a strange kind of strength. Every day I carry that weight with me. I still fear for my life, there are shadows that follow me even now, but I don't regret a single moment. Because some truths are worth the risk. Some secrets need to be told, no matter the cost. And I'd rather face the darkness than live in a lie. If this story moved you or made you think twice about what goes on behind closed doors, please like, comment, and share your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Your support helps us keep these stories alive and brings more untold truths to light. Thank you for listening.